Okay, and welcome back to Paolo in Chiang Mai. Not in Chiang Mai right now, but I just wanted to make an introduction video for the grand tour of Isaan that I did last summer. Often do this. I do the trip, and it's not until I finish the trip that I make the introduction video explaining where I went, what I did, how much it cost, etc. I will say this trip was fantastic. I just done Vietnam from the south, from Saigon up to Hanoi, come through Laos, and then went down to Pattaya to meet a friend for a week. Spent a week with a good friend Tony in Pattaya, catching up with him, and that was the place where I planned to start this journey from. For a couple of reasons. One, I'd done a cycle trip from Bangkok following the coast and then into Cambodia and across to Nha Trang in Vietnam. That was a cycle ride that I did back in 2015, and on that trip I had meant to do the entire length of Vietnam, hadn't finished it. But during that trip I'd basically come across to Chantaburi and then gone to a place called Pong Nam Ron and then crossed over into Cambodia, and the stretch of road here is really beautiful, so I wanted to finish that stretch of road, and it was ideal because then it led me up into Isaan, this whole eastern region of Thailand that I'd never seen before and wanted to do for years, but just never had the time or money to get around to it. Oh, and also the second reason for starting from Pattaya was it is so cheap to rent a bike, any kind of motorbike in Pattaya. I was only going for a scooter, but to rent a scooter for 2 weeks was, I think, around about 3,000, no, not even 3,000, 2,000 baht. It was about £50 for 2 weeks, which meant I had my ideal jumping off point because I wanted to see that stretch of road leading up into Isaan, like I said, and it was just perfect. No hassle at all. I think I only didn't have to leave my passport. Deposit, I think there's 1,000 baht deposit. That was all I had to leave, which was like £20 as a deposit. It was just, it's a great place to start a trip like this and rent a motorbike. The only other place in Isaan, it's quite hard to rent a motorbike. The only other place I considered it was in Nong Khai. There's supposed to be a really good guy there, but I didn't. For this part of this trip, I didn't want to start in Nong Khai, so hence where I rent my motorbike. So on this trip, it was a 2-week trip. That was the plan. I went across from Pattaya to Chantaburi in a day, went up to Sakeo, then to the ancient temple of Panam Rung, which is about there, up to Buriram, across to Susaket, Ubon Ratchathani, Royet, a place just north of Kalasin by this lake you can see, where there's a dinosaur museum. Into Songkran, met a friend in Songkran, Chayapum, Nakhon Ratchasima, Korat, and then back via a place. I came down the east side of the famous Khao Yai National Park and stopped a night in a place called Kabinburi, and then went back to Pattaya, and absolutely fantastic. £50 to rent the motorbike for 2 weeks. I think I spent £300 a week, so £650 all in, about $750. Obviously I was already there, didn't have to pay for flights to get there, but that's pretty cheap considering I paid for hotels, had a motorbike, got to see and do everything I wanted to. Did it live up to expectations? Absolutely. Now, what were the highlights of this trip? Well, I took the fast road. Instead of following the coast like I did on my cycle ride, I took a fast road from Pattaya to Chantaburi. Wasn't expecting anything from that, didn't get anything from that. Then I went up this road I'd been up a little bit before to Phnom Nam Ron, and then continued, and it wasn't as good as I'd expected it to be, but Sakeo, where I ended up that night, was fantastic. Then Phnom Rung, where the ancient Kaima temple is, giving views back over to Cambodia, that was pretty good. Buriram was fascinating, spent 2 nights there. Went to the racetrack, went to the extinct volcano there, like they'd had at Phnom Rung. Sisaket, not shown here, but it's about there. It was fantastic. Really traditional Thai town. Would I want to be there more than a night? Not sure I would. Ubon Ratchathani, that was a disappointment. Because the mega city, I was looking at on this trip places where maybe I might like to live in Thailand again in the future. Thought Buriram might be it. It was nice, it was interesting, but I wouldn't live there. Ubon, definitely not. Huge city, big air force base that they used in the Americans used in the Vietnam War, but not a very pretty or interesting city. Now, one thing that did surprise me was the next day when I rode from Ubon Ratchathani up to Royet. That stretch of road was actually really beautiful. There were loads of coffee shops. Lots of stretches were lined by trees that I hadn't been expecting. That was really good. Got to Royet, rode around the city. I like the idea of Royet because it was like a mini Chiang Mai. The centre's got a moat around it. So there's an ancient centre of the city with a moat around it. And in the very, very centre, there's a lake which I went to exercise around in the morning. And I went to a shopping mall. Isaan is full of new shopping malls that weren't there just a couple of years ago. They are there now. But Royet, not that interesting. Lots of expats living there. Not somewhere I'd live. Another place. Glad I've seen it. Glad I went there. One night was enough for me. And then the next day, I rode up to Kalasin and then up to the Serinderhorn Dinosaur Museum, which is next to this lake here. That place. Oh, what's the name of that place? I have to get it up. I'll put it in the comment section or something. The little town there is actually Sahatsakan. That's what it's called. Sahatsakan is actually really nice. There's a really good coffee shop there. A few nice resorts where you can stay. I walked up to the temple on my first day. Tried to go to the dinosaur museum. Chose the only day that the new king of Thailand had turned up to visit, and they closed it to everyone else, so I didn't get to see that, which was really disappointing because that was one of the main things I wanted to do on the trip. But I got a message that night from a friend in Songkran, so I went there the next day, met my friend in Songkran, another city I'd passed through a few times but never actually stopped off there. Songkran, huge city. The resort I stayed in was excellent. I stayed on a resort on the edge of the city, and I explored it the next day in the morning, went to exercise around one of the big lakes. But pretty bland city, famous because it's got, I think it's the biggest university campus in the whole of Thailand. Songkran University is really famous, got a really big medical faculty. But again, one night I was ready to leave, and then I hadn't initially planned to visit Chayapum out here. I planned to go straight down this main superhighway to Nakhon Ratchasima, but I've done that stretch of road a few times, not very beautiful. Chayapum is somewhere that's fascinated me. Went out there, it's really beautiful. Got a beautiful bungalow accommodation. and realised there's mountains out the back that you can explore and go off to. So I'll definitely do that at some point in the future. Went down there, used back roads to go to Nakhon Ratchasima Karat, which is a big military town. Unfortunately, where that big shooting's just happened at Terminal 21. Went there as soon as I'd arrived for lunch. There's a viewing platform on the top. It's made like an airport. Went to exercise around the lake. Good accommodation again. And then the next day I rode down a road that comes past the east side of Khao Yai National Park. Now, I think that was the first national park in Thailand, which is this green area, and I hadn't even realised that was the route I was on. But then I saw there were like signs for elephants and things. Actually it was okay, but not that beautiful. I ended up in a place called Cabin Buri, found a really nice resort, but it took me 2 hours to find it. I rode around checking out loads of resorts, and the one I ended up in was the only one that I thought was decent. And then from Cabin Buri the next day I went back to Pattaya. 2-week trip. Really gave me a good idea of Isaan and what it's like. It's famous for being the poorest region of Thailand, the rice growing region, being bland. There's nothing there. There's loads there. Loads of Kaima temples, extinct volcanoes, racetracks, lakes, and really nice people who haven't been exposed to too many foreigners. It's not a big tourist destination, so that makes it a great place to visit. Accommodation, coffee shops, everything you could want. Absolutely incredible. And I've got another trip planned. I'm going to make another video about that next time. Probably going to again start in Pattaya because it's a great place, close to Bangkok. Go there, rent a cheap motorbike very easily. I'm going to come up to Phetchabun, up to the Mekong River, follow that around and go around, maybe see Sakon Nakhon, Mukdahan, might stop in Yasatoon. Probably about another 2-week trip, might be 3 weeks, but that's the region of Thailand at the moment that fascinates me the most and that I'd like to see more of. This trip, absolutely bellissima, really good, really enjoyed it.